Welcome back to the Deep End Sports Science and History. Right. So, if you're here listening to stuff about sports science, I'm sure you've already heard about the Enhanced Games. So, I've got the sales pitch here, straight from their website. At Enhanced, we are pioneering a new era in athletic competition that embraces scientific advancements to push the boundaries of human performance. We believe that the benefits of science and technology can be harnessed safely and should be celebrated in sports. Let's break that down a little bit. The scientific enhancements, we're talking about performance enhancing drugs that the funders behind this whole thing sell. The whole thing is to just sell drugs to inadequate middle aged men with erectile dysfunction. So I'm their target customer. Now, you might have seen the pictures of James Magnuson, and he seems to be the only one that's talking publicly about what he's doing. So far, publicly, they only have 4 swimmers involved. So we'll talk a little bit about the swimmers, but first we'll talk about the drugs that he says he's on. So the base of it was testosterone and then peptides. So we used BPC 157, CJC 1295, ipamorelin, and thymosin. Now, I've been interested in doping in sports since the 90s, so I've been reading about this for 30 years. I had to Google the word salad of all of these peptides that they're using. So obviously, testosterone is the big daddy. And I've done about 6 hours of podcasts on testosterone and the effects on men, women, intersex people, people with differences of sexual development, trans women. I've covered this so much. Just go back on Spotify and have a look. So I assume you know what testosterone does and that it does work. So this first drug, BPC 157, in preclinical research, it may have cytoprotective cell, neuroprotective nerve and brain cells, anti-inflammatory effects. I've also done a bit on it, anti-inflammatory, and may also accelerate tissue and organ healing. It's sometimes used in, scare quotes, functional medicine, despite not being approved by any drug regulatory agency. None of the studies have ever been done on humans, but it's somehow legal to sell. I don't really understand the legality of it. But there's been some research done on mice and some of their cell recovery and stuff. Nothing on humans, and certainly nothing on sports people. But again, this is the stuff that the funders behind, the backers of the Enhanced Games are selling to you. So as of 2022, it's been banned by the Anti-Doping Agency under like non-exempt substances. Then you have CJC 1295 DAC. It doesn't even have a proper name. Known as DAC GRF, short for Drug Affinity Complex Growth Hormone Releasing Factor. So it's a synthetic analog of growth hormone releasing hormone, GHRH. I know a little bit about growth hormone and stuff, and there's been loads of stuff about different supplements that are supposed to help with growth hormone releasing hormone. And they may have a little effect, but we don't know what the effect is on performance. And there's no studies done on this. So, just from Wikipedia. CJC 1295 may markedly increase plasma growth hormone. Great. Insulin-like growth factor. Awesome. IGF-1 is probably the most powerful anabolic that your body can use. And with a single injection in human subjects, CJC may increase plasma growth hormone levels by 2 to 10-fold for 6 days or longer. Great. Doesn't say anything about how your body actually uses that. And IGF-1 levels by 1/2 to 3-fold for 9 to 11 days. So it sounds very powerful. But this particular GAC has had some human testing. But we have to ask the question, why not just use growth hormone? We know how it works and the side effects, which there are, but it's regulated and harder to make money from, as you need a script from a doctor, or you're using black market sources like most bodybuilders would use. But in this case, the backers of the Enhanced Games who are selling this to you can't control the supply. So they are not the ones they can't make money from somebody using growth hormone, you have to use this stuff. So ipamorelin, it's another growth hormone releasing peptide. It was originally developed first by Novo Nordisk. If you know Novo Nordisk, they do sort of, I think, insulin as well. And were investigated. They got up to phase 2 clinical trials by Helsinn Therapeutics for the treatment of post-operative ileus, but it was discontinued to lack of efficacy. So it was discontinued because it didn't really work. And the final one, thymosin, is the only thing that it seems to be used for is a hair loss treatment. Apparently, the process of hair growth utilizes many cellular and molecular mechanisms common to angiogenesis and wound healing. Now, obviously, you can say this might have sparked my interest. So, while studying the influence of thymosin beta-4 on wound healing, Philip et al. Accidentally found that hair grew more rapidly around the edges of wounds. So maybe it just makes hair grow randomly instead of on your head. We don't know. Because it was just in mice, on wounds on mice. So in due course showed that T4 or thymosin beta-4 induced rapid hair growth on the dorsal skin of healthy mice. Again, no research on humans, people. And if there's anything, God, sports science, well, not real sports science, but the advertising that people get about sports science is full of vague research that was done on animals or in a petri dish, and then they make these huge claims, whether it's stuff to do, oh, this will increase your production of EPO or growth hormone or testosterone, but they never get along what would happen in science in actually, all right, so if it does increase growth hormone, testosterone, EPO, does that have an effect on your body in humans, never mind in mice? And does it actually have a performance enhancing effect? We don't know any of this, but people can sell you this stuff. So far, the 4 people that we've got involved, got Josef Miladinov. Also, he was a fantastic swimmer, another sprinter, 1500 freestyle and butterfly. Christian Goklemev, Greek-Bulgarian swimmer. And there's apparently video of him unofficially breaking the world record while in the now banned Jagged supersuit. That's very possible. I mean, breaking a world record in a championship is much harder than doing it in training. I'm sure there's plenty of top-level athletes who have broken the world record in training, but trying to do it under the pressure and the various things that come with top-end competition, the stresses of being at the Olympics, World Championships, even Pan Pacs European Championships. They're tiring things to try and go through warm-ups, cool-downs, another race, another warm-up, another cool-down. It's tiring. So breaking a world record in training is weirdly not that impressive, especially with a supersuit that you can't use anymore. I'm sure the people funding all of this saw the publicity that they got from Breaking 2 when Eliud Kipchoge, in a very modified way, managed to run 26.2 miles in under 2 hours. But it wasn't a race, and it was all very contrived. It was an interesting thing to do. And that's pretty much what this is. Last guy, Andrei Govorov, he's probably the youngest of these, pretty much still an active swimmer, not some retired guy that hasn't swum competitively for 8 or 9 years. And I don't have anything against these guys taking the money, because top-level swimmers, even top-level swimmers, don't make a lot of money. If you're even, God, I'm trying to think, it was, I think Britain and Australia have some of the best funding, and you might get a bit less than $30,000 roughly per year to race and compete. And they obviously pay for the transport, your training facilities. 30 grand a year is not a lot of money. And it's people that are living out this dream. So if there's an offer of getting $1 million to break some arbitrary world record, then Yeah, sure, take it. You're adults. You can do as many drugs as you like. I don't care. Back looking at James Magnuson here. So I've thought about this over the years because I'm kind of interested in doping, and it is an interesting thing. And you have the philosophical thing of saying these are professional athletes, they are adults, they can choose what they do with their bodies, and that is 100% true. Why do we have anti-doping? Well, one argument is that it stops people from having an unfair advantage because they do something dangerous to their own bodies, so kind of protecting athletes from themselves. That's a valid argument. I also feel one of the main arguments is that, yeah, in principle, you could say, let's call it, pro- any professional sports person should be able to do what they want with their bodies. And doing all of the out of competition testing and stuff is arduous and it's a pain. And I wouldn't want to go through that. Unfortunately, I was never that sort of level as an athlete. Now, probably the best argument I've heard is if you consider something like the American sports, American football being the main one, which has a lot of drugs in it and the more or less sanctioned, but probably not as much as like professional bodybuilding, which is crazy for doping because it is. And yeah, you could have people looking like some mutant like Nick Walker or Dorian Yates or Ronnie Coleman coming up to your swim meet or doing the 100 meters. Probably wouldn't make that much difference. They are going to hit at some hard limits. There's the argument that oh yeah, they're all doing drugs anyway, which may or may not be true. I don't have that information, and nobody does. But when it comes to doping, the whole idea of the doping process is to keep things as close to fair as possible. There are always going to be some people that get away with some doping, and we see that time and time again from different countries and whatnot, and different drugs. But if you have to kind of then reduce back that, all right, so if you want to become a professional athlete, the people at the level below that will also have to do drugs and it will be damaging for their bodies and the people below them. And then everybody will have to do drugs just to take part in sports. I don't, and that kind of hits me the wrong way that if my child at, yeah, 14, 15 wants to take part in sport, that if they have to then take various anabolics, growth hormone, EPO, some of these crazy letter salad peptides just to compete, I don't want them taking part in sports. That heard these philosophical arguments for over 30 years now, and I did bodybuilding back in the olden days. I did the natural thing. I didn't have a problem with other people using steroids. I don't really care what you do with your own body, but at some point, if you just have complete no holds barred, you can do as much doping as you want. It will mean that people will have to start doping their kids. And I'm not okay with that. That at some point, consent goes out the window. And as we see with professional bodybuilding now, you look at professional bodybuilders and you're following, yeah, roughly every year there's some professional bodybuilder dies very young of some like weird, normally heart related thing. And these are people that they look amazing. They could not look more healthy when they're on stage, but it's incredibly risky. Now, there are some bodybuilders from back in the day that seem to be doing very well now, using a minimal amount of steroids or 70s era steroids or even 80s era steroids. But then the other drugs that come in on top, when there's no rules, it starts killing people. And again, if that's what you want to do, kind of fine. But anti-doping as it stands at the moment is not perfect. And I don't think anybody within anti-doping will say that it's perfect. What it does is it kind of puts the brakes on some of the worst stuff. This enhanced games, they say they're doing medical tests on these athletes, and it may not have long-term consequences for their health. We have no idea. We've got an N of 4 so far. It's not enough to really tell. So if one of them does get cancer in the next 5 years, it may not be to do with the drugs. It may be. We have no real knowledge because the drugs that they're using haven't even been tested, apart from on mice, and then they got dropped because they weren't very effective. So kind of just a marketing scheme. And if you go onto the Enhanced website, I've had a look, they have this $99 offer where they're teasing that you can get in at the start and you can get, we know the drugs that they're going to be offering. And yeah, it's just a money-making thing. And at least with the Ineos Breaking 2, it was a little bit about technology and human performance and may well have included drugs, who knows. But at least it was something that people have been talking about and it was interesting. I don't find this very interesting, but I kind of wish, especially the swimmers, I wish them the best of luck. I hope they get lots of money from it. But frankly, I think the whole idea of the enhanced games is a bit of a damp squib and it's boring. That even if they do go faster than Cesar Cielo's 50-meter world record, nobody will care. It doesn't really matter. It's just, yeah, it's not very important. And people like Donald Trump Jr. who invested in this just because they think they can make some money out of selling unregulated drugs to inadequate middle-aged men. Okay, catch you later. Bye.